All right, we're looking at question 4 here. I give a balanced equation, and I tell you if we have 15 grams of aluminum sulfide and 10 grams of water, and we want to solve all these. Well, the first thing it says, it wants us to calculate a limiting reagent. Now, it turns out there's really one way to do this, but there's multiple possible ways that will work. Now, what I mean by one way, you need to compare both of your starting ingredients to the same item. So it says 15 grams of aluminum sulfide, and it also says 10 grams of water. Well, since those are two totally different components, I really can't compare them. That's like apples and oranges. So I need to relate them to a single one. Now, oftentimes, what we end up doing is comparing them to the exact same product. And that would work on this case, because if you notice here, it wants us to calculate the exact mass of H2S in part B. So what we could do is a conversion for, say, like the aluminum sulfide, and figure out how much hydrogen sulfide it makes, or the H2S. But since this first one just really wants to know the limiting reagent, I'm going to show you a way that really only gives you one calculation you need to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how many grams of water is needed to make sure all of the aluminum sulfide goes away. So we're just going to convert the one. So I'm going to need the molecular weight of the aluminum sulfide. And I will use the relationship from the balanced equation of 1 aluminum sulfide for every 6 waters. And then I'll need the molecular weight of the water. And that one I don't need to calculate because water is a common one. All right, but we do need to get the aluminum sulfide. And I happen to have a periodic table handy. Aluminum happens to weigh 26.98 grams. Sulfur is 32.06 grams. And that gives me a molecular weight of 150.14 grams. And the grams would cancel, moles there would cancel, water would cancel. This would give me grams of water. So I'm going to do 15 divided by the 150 that I just calculated, times 6, and times 18.016. And that will give me that 10.80 grams, which does mean to use up all 15 grams of aluminum 2 sulfide, we would need 10.8 grams of water. And since we only have 10.8 grams of water, we know water is limiting. Now, this next equation, since we know which one's limiting, we're going to use that limiting reagent to do all the calculations. I don't know why I just wrote down that. I just said the limiting reagent was water. One mole of water happens to weigh 18.016 grams, and I care about the water to the hydrogen sulfide, so there are 6 waters for every 3 hydrogen sulfides. And it wants to know the mass of hydrogen sulfide that I get, so I'm going to convert that to a mass. So 32.016 plus 2 times 1.008. I get the molecular weight of as 34.08. So I'm going to do 10 divided by 18.016 times 3 divided by 6 times 34.08, and I get a mass of 9.6 grams. Now, the excess reagent, it kind of would have been nice if we calculated the top one using the 10 grams of water. Because if we had used the 10 grams of water, we could have actually taken whatever value we get here and subtracted from the original 15 grams of aluminum sulfide. So this equation that we put here is going to look a lot like that top one, except everything's kind of flipped because we're going to convert our grams of water into grams of aluminum sulfide. So 10 divided by 18.016 divided by 6 times 150.14 I actually hit something wrong on my calculator. And I get 13.89 grams. And to get the amount of excess, we'll just subtract the 15 from that. And we get that there would be 1.11 grams of A2S3 remaining. Alright, so what I said before, when we get that limiting reagent, there's multiple things we could calculate for our comparison because there are multiple components to the balanced equation, but we really want to be able to just compare the two that are given to one another. So that's why I just did one calculation where I figured out from that aluminum sulfide how much water would be needed. Then once we figured out which is what the limiting reagent, we use that in all the remaining calculations.